is my wife, Teresa. I was born hard of hearing, but now my deafness is much worse, more severe. My parents found out I was deaf when I was 4 years old, and the doctors and teachers told them I should go to an oral school to learn to speak. They didn't allow signing. Speech is important, yes, but I did miss a lot, and I was behind in school, too. When I was 13, I started going to the deaf school, and I learned sign language there, and my world completely changed. It really improved. Everyone there could sign. That was so great. And I was finally able to understand everything that was going on. My parents never learned to sign, and as I look back, I wish they had learned. Ever since then, I've had a hard time trying to lip read and speech read. And if there's a lot of people involved in a conversation, I'm kind of lost. One-on-one, I can usually catch things that are going on sometimes. So I definitely encourage hearing parents to learn sign language, even if your child does use a hearing aid or a cochlear implant. In the past, I worked at a school for the deaf, and I saw many hearing parents who couldn't communicate with their deaf child. They couldn't sign at all, so really unfortunate. If their parents had learned sign, they would have felt closer and have a better, clearer communication method with their child. And the child would feel more comfortable, more involved. And if you learn, you won't regret it. Hi, my name is Teresa, and I've been an interpreter for about 35 years. And during that time, I've seen so many hearing parents that really struggle to communicate with their deaf child. And they have really limited, superficial conversations with them, and nothing really deep or, really intimate. And I can't even count how many times that hearing parents have asked me, would you mind interpreting for my son or daughter? Let them know their grandmother has cancer, or they have to improve their grades. And so that really affected me. And that's the reason I decided to go ahead and make this video. Many deaf adults have told me that they have felt really kind of left out, even in their own families, because of the communication barrier. So please make an effort to learn sign for your child. It won't be easy, but it will be really worth it in the long run. I had the pleasure of interviewing several hearing parents and deaf children and adults for this video. And maybe hearing their stories will convince you that it's really important to learn sign for your child. During the interviews, I asked the parents, why did you decide to learn sign language? And what positive impact did you learning sign have on your relationship with your child? And then for the deaf children and adults, I asked them, why was it so important that your parents had learned sign? And what positive impact did them learning sign language have on your self-esteem, your relationship? And also, if your parents had not learned sign, how would your life be different? So enjoy the interviews.
Hi, my name is Chris, and we have 4 children, my husband and I. 2 of them are deaf and 2 of them are hearing. And one of the main reasons that my husband and I learned sign language is because we believe that you express love through communication, so you have to know the language in order to show love and to be able to communicate. My husband and I both believe that our children, our ability to sign has impacted our children throughout their entire life, all of the aspects of their life. They are independent and pretty much self-sufficient, and I believe that a lot of that has to do with the communication that they were able to have access to in our home. We have been able to discuss all facets of life, whether that is from education, being able to help with homework. We can discuss politics, we can discuss religion. We're able to tell jokes and have humor, and all of that is because we are able to communicate using the same language that the children use as their first language. So early on, when we found out that our oldest daughter was deaf, at that time we lived in Michigan, and we were referred to an early intervention program. And during the course of the early intervention program, I came to realize that as a hearing family, that we will always have the spoken piece of language. When it comes to English, that's our first language, and that naturally comes to us. But it was at that time that I realized that we really need to develop our sign language skills. And our children, because of us being a part of the deaf community, have always been exposed to other deaf role models as well. So their identity as to who they are seemed very well secure, even in their early youth when they were about early elementary age. And I believe that a lot of that had to come, was a result of us knowing sign language. And although we were still learning and emerging with our sign language, we still had some basic communication as we grew. But also because of being with the deaf community, I think that that had a very strong impact on them and their identity, which all of that, of course, is tied into their self-esteem and who they are. So over the course of the last 21 years since my daughter has been born and learning sign language, I have to say that learning sign language was the easy way for me based on my experiences and what it is that I've seen. I've met families that are frustrated because their children are older and they can't express everything that it is that they want to be able to express, and the children are frustrated and the parents are frustrated. And looking back, I have no regrets for having learned sign language. Everything that I see from our family being able to communicate has all been a positive experience. We're able to express love and just be there for each other. And so I have to say that when I list pros and cons for why you should or shouldn't learn sign language, I only have a list of pros. I don't have a list of cons. And that's because if a child has an ability to have any receptive auditory, if they have the ability to learn speech, then you can use that and add that as part of language and another mode of communication. However, sign language just seems to benefit the child all around.
Hi, I'm Caleb. And I'm Tisha. Watching our parents use sign language has done a lot of positive things for us. We grew up learning sign, so that allowed us to develop a strong relationship and communication. We could understand each other, and they encouraged and empowered us to use and improve our skills, and that really meant a lot to us and had a positive impact on us. If we didn't have that communication, we would have felt more alone and isolated. We probably would have experienced a lot of frustration and not being able to express ourselves. Some friends we know whose parents don't sign had to act out to get their parents' attention, not the right kind of attention. With signing, there's positive communication and mutual understanding, and you can show you love each other by communicating with them. Sign language is easy to learn, so I would suggest you learn sign now if your child is deaf. If we hadn't learned sign, we probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. We would have been in our own deaf world, just interacting with each other, and it would be different. Maybe we wouldn't want to have anything to do with our family, or vice versa. When attending family events, we would have been experiencing frustration with communication. Sometimes we do get lost during conversations, but then if we see another family member signing, we tend to gravitate to them, and they can explain what's going on. So we're lucky, since a lot of kids don't have that opportunity. Also, their level of understanding English may not be very advanced. Our parents can communicate with us and encouraged us to read and write, so we're bilingual. our level of understanding written English is probably higher than most kids because we've had communication and encouragement from our parents. They understood our culture and needs so we could support each other.
Hi, my name is Maggie, and this is my son Matthew. Matthew is deaf. He went to the Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind, and this is his graduation picture. I'm very proud of this picture. I'm very proud of this young man. Matthew died about 6 years ago in a car accident, and so that's kind of the sad part of this story, but I wanted to just give you some feedback on his life and how he impacted our family. Mainly, I want to talk about communication and why it was so important for our family that when we found out that Matthew was deaf, that we felt it was kind of a natural decision that we wanted to learn sign language. And quite frankly, at the time it was very overwhelming. He had just been ill, had almost died from the meningitis, and now we were needing to determine what kind of a system he would be learning for the rest of his life. But part of that decision also, whatever we decided that he was going to learn, we were going to learn as a family. It was just a natural decision for us that I wanted to be able to talk to my own kid and talk to Matthew just the way I would with my other children. And we have, Matthew had an older brother and then a younger sister, and so it was a family thing. We all learned as I was teaching him, we were teaching ourselves, and also my other children. It just kind of happened, again, kind of naturally. And I think it was the most important decision that we ever made, was that we determined right then and there that this is a family thing and we will all learn. And it definitely made a lot of impact, I think, in his life as well as our life. The thought of my child being in our home and him not being a part of our conversations, not hearing the family banter going back and forth, the family history. If I hadn't been able to share those things with him, I would have felt really like I left out a big part of his history and his life, and I couldn't stand the thought of that. And not only that, but for the siblings, they needed to be able to fight just like all other siblings, and they needed to be able to understand what they were fighting about, and so they didn't have to go through mom or somebody else. They learned it and carried on some very deep conversations, actually, as they got older. We were all very close. It takes definite work to be able to do that, but the results of that, I think, are life-changing. And one thing that was life-changing for me was right after Matt became deaf. He was just a toddler, and so we were trying to, we decided on using American Sign Language to communicate with him and help him communicate. And so one day I had my books. I went to the store. We lived in a rural area, so there weren't a lot of resources around for us. We didn't have the wonderful internet that we have now. So I went to the store and bought some books, basic sign language. And so we would try to teach him a sign according to as he needed it, so to speak. This is a car. This is a truck. One day we were in the kitchen, and he had been fussy, and was kind of whining and kind of pointing his finger, but I had no clue what he wanted. And of course, for a mom, it's hard. You want to know what your child needs, what they want. And so I was frustrated too, but he kept kind of pointing up to a cabinet, and he was kind of whining, and So I opened the cabinet door and just kind of looked at him, and he kept pointing, and there was a box of cookies up there. So I picked up the box of cookies and I showed it to him, and he shook his head like, yeah, that's what I want, or the cookies. So I took out the cookie and I made the sign for Cookie, and I said, "This is Cookie." I saw the lights go off in his face. For that was the first moment I think that he was able to relate that sign with that cookie, and it all made sense from then on. And that was a very poignant moment for me, to realize that I couldn't go through life without being able to communicate with my child. You know, I guess I have kind of a unique perspective since Matthew is no longer with us. You know, I've had a lot of opportunity to think back and look at the time that we did have him. We had him for 25 years. And think back, did I do everything that I could have to know my child and to be, you know, have him as a part of our lives and us a part of his. And, you know, I never wanted him to feel like he was a stranger or a visitor in his own home. I wanted him to feel like he was, you know, part of the family, and that meant that we could all communicate together. So it was very, very important that we do that. And again, looking back, I can say that I feel like I knew Matt, because we did learn to communicate. We did learn his language, and he learned our language. You know, it was that's what communication is both sides working together to be able to convey their feelings and their thoughts. And Matthew was able to come to us, his dad, his brother, his sister, myself, and we could talk about things that I could talk about with my other kids. And that was important. That was important for all of us. And you know, now that Matt is gone, which of course is a hard thing, very sad thing for our family, my other two children, we don't really have any regrets, because we knew we did or tried to do everything that we could to be a part of his life and have him to be a part of each of our lives. And I will never doubt that it's because we made that effort to learn his language and be a part of his life. And again, now that he's not with us, I have no regrets, because we all very much loved each other, and we were able to communicate that to each other.